welcome to Happy Hour Holidaze with your host, your boy, Manny Fresh. And then we got my sidekick over here, Sean Fabrizi. And in the house, we got local Tampa legend, Mr.
Very nice.
Greg Wolf, CEO of Street, Lace, and so many other businesses that we're going to find out today.
Sure.
Really excited to have you in studio, Greg.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here. Chris Sean said I needed to hop on with you boys. So I said, you know, friends of Chris Sean's are friends of mine. So.
Yeah, thank you, DJ Chris Sean, dog. Thanks, man. You getting this place filled up, baby. We're going to have to make you a part-time investor up in this place.
No doubt, man. That guy's a good investor.
Yeah, he is.
You know?
Man, the one thing about, just a quick thing on Christian, man, the one thing about him is anytime I'm around him, it's all positivity, great vibes.
Yeah.
And the first day I met him, I was like, bro, I'm going to be longtime friends with this guy, man. So appreciate it, Christian. Chris John.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So Greg, man,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, everybody here in Tampa, we had Tampa Bay for a little bit, but man, we love sports. I mean, me and my brother, we're diehard Tampa Bay fans, Lightning, the Rays, the Bucks.
Yep.
I know you're involved with all these different organizations with your companies.
Sure.
And it's been, like you said, an awesome ride. I mean, who wouldn't want to be around sports all the time?
Right.
For me, I'm just like, man, that's like busting a nut every fucking day. So, dude, how did you get? I know you also did radio.
Yes.
I mean, you're one of the big time radio guys. I'm not going to mention name. I'll let you go ahead and say that.
Sure.
But how did you, growing up, how did you get into radio and, doing marketing and DJing and all this different stuff, man? I mean, because I always like to hear the background stories of how you get there.
So, for me, it has been a crazy journey to say the least. But I'll try to summarize it as best as I can because it has been a crazy journey to get to this point. But going back to, I grew up in the Washington, DC, Baltimore area, Columbia, Maryland, which is literally like in between DC and Baltimore. It's like literally like a midpoint between the two. So, grew up there for most of my life. And in high school, didn't really make the transition from middle school to high school that great. Actually not good at all. Like almost failed. Like my freshman year was not good at all. But I was lucky enough that I found a teacher who kind of inspired me, got me focused to the point where I turned my grades around. My dad saw the turnaround and said, if I'm going to keep this kid motivated, I got to give him some motivation myself. So the summer before my junior year of high school, my dad said, we're going to take a road trip. And I was like, yeah, what are we doing? He goes, write down any college that you've ever really wanted to visit somewhere on the Eastern Seaboard. I'm not talking about like UCLA, like not USC. I'm like, no. Like, let's be realistic. We lived in Maryland. Like, there's a lot of amazing schools on the Eastern Seaboard. So literally for that summer, we took a road trip from Maryland all the way down to Florida. And I visited schools like UNC Chapel Hill, Georgia, Florida, Miami, USF, all the schools in Florida, UCF, whatever. For whatever reason, I fell in love with USF. Now, mind you, this is like mid-90s, just totally different USF than it is today. But I fell in love with the school. Maybe because, again, I'm a younger kid, so I'm like, wait a minute, Busch Gardens is across the street. And, it's near a beach. And I'm thinking the wrong reasons. Like the sorority chicks they had out there for the tour, like they lured me in. And so I'm like, this is where I want to go. And my dad's like, okay, well, if that's where you want to go, this is your chance now this year, junior year, to get your grades where they need to be. And I will make a promise to you that if you get grades to the point where you could possibly get accepted to the University of South Florida, I would be willing to pack up and move to Florida.
Shit, man.
So that we would have in-state residency. So if you got into that school, we're not paying Maryland, out-of-state tuition to a Florida school. I was like, that's a crazy proposition that my dad gave me. But I did it. I focused and I got grades. And so my dad kept his word. And so me, my dad, my brother, we packed it up the summer before my senior year. That's the one thing I had to sacrifice was I grew up with all these kids my whole life, elementary, middle school, high school. I'm now going to have to sacrifice my senior year of high school to go to Florida at a new school, don't know anybody, so that I can look at the bigger picture, which was college. My dad, cool enough, found a new community here in Florida. And again, this is early 90s, Newport Richie. Early 90s Newport Richie, like nothing, just old people, nothing. But he found a development that had a brand new high school that was just built, River Ridge High School. Shout to my alma mater, River Ridge. At that time, my dad's like, listen, I found this community where they just built this massive campus. It is a middle school and a high school in one. That's how big it is. Middle school is completely on one end, high school is completely on the other, but it's this massive community. It literally just finished. They don't have a senior class. I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, they're rezoning the district so that when you're there your senior year, you're not going to be the only new kid. They're pulling from Ridgewood and Gulf High School and all the surrounding schools to rezone. So they're going to make a senior class. So you're not going to be the only new kid. Nobody's going to know anybody. And honestly, could not have been a better senior year. Ended up graduating with honors. There was no cliques. There was only 220 kids in our senior class. Oh, wow. Everybody hung out with everybody. There was like the nerds and the because we were only together for 9 months. And so that's what kicked it all off. And so I got into USF because I graduated with honors at River Ridge for a senior class. And then that got me into USF. And at USF, obviously, it's all about figuring out like what, my major at the time was mass communications, which I ended up graduating with a degree in programming and production from USF. But back then, there was no radio. It was all TV production, news, PR, advertising, which, again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in the field. And so, but I was going to USF for my major. At the time, again, being a hip hop kid from, again, right around DC, growing up around hip hop music. That was my love. That was my passion. I found a local hip hop magazine in Tampa called The Hive hip hop magazine back in, again, mid 90s. And this dude, Russell, he had this great underground hip hop magazine. Here it was all about graffiti, hip hop, local hip hop, national hip hop, the whole nine. And again, it was an outlet that I found and I gravitated towards, ended up reaching out to him, letting him know I was a college student at USF. How could I be involved? He said, I would love somebody to do music reviews. So I get, CDs in, I'll, pass them your way. You listen to them. I take your word for it. Like I obviously sat down, had conversations with him. So now I'm writing music reviews for a local hip hop magazine. At the same time, going to USF, my brother was working at a pizza spot up here in Carrollwood. And in the kitchen, they were listening to the Hooters on the radio morning show. Again, back in the 90s, the Hooters brand here, obviously the local home and ground, they had a morning show, Hooters on the radio, which was actually in Feather Sound right above where 98 Rock and Thunder, remember Thunder 103? All of them were in that building, but they were on an AM station signal. But the Hooters on the radio had a morning show. It was Lynn Austin, who's the original Hooters girl. It was BL, who was another one of the original Troop Hooters girls. There was this girl, it's the third girl in the crew, but then it was Spaniard, who was the producer, and Bill with Wood, who was their board op. So they had a whole cast of characters. Great, funny morning show. Chicks running it, but it was about sports because Lynn Austin was married to Daryl Dalton, the Phillies player. So married to a professional athlete. So they had a great morning show. My brother and his crew in the kitchen would listen to their morning show. And as you guys know, in radio, sometimes restaurants do like food drops to go down. Oh, we're going to go to the station, drop off food, get a free mention, a plug or whatever. So my brother's restaurant gets chosen to deliver food to the Hooters on the morning show. Knowing I'm going to USF for mass comm, my brother's like, hey, do you want to come with me to the radio show? I was like, hell yeah, I want to go. So we're listening that morning on the way to the station, and the girls are talking about why men don't like to shop. So I don't know if Lynn was just bitching about her husband or whatever, but I came from a retail family. My mom worked at Macy's and Saks Fifth Avenue growing up. So we were around fashion and retail. So the girls were like kind of making my blood boil. They were literally stereotyping dudes. I'm like, what is this chick talking about? This is so not true. And so I was not fuming, but I was like boiling up inside. So we get into the station, we bring in the food. And the first thing that enthralled me about it was when we walked into the radio station, it sounds like a huge morning show, right? Massive on the air. The studio, no lie, dude, was literally from here to the end of the wall with like 9 people crammed in. It was so small. I'm like, wait a minute, that thing sounds huge on the air, but this is it? This is like a huge morning show is in a closet? So that thing blew my mind, was like the whole theater of the mind about radio. That instantly hit me. I'm like, wow, they're really selling it because it sounds larger than life on the radio, but in reality, it's in a square closet, right? So it comes time for us to bring in the food. We bring in the food. And I couldn't shut my mouth, man. So there was a moment in the conversation and I was like, can I ask you guys a question? And so like, who's this kid, right? And so he's asked my brother, and I'm like, I'm a student in the USF, but I have a question for you. And then so I'm asking him, like, why do you think guys don't like to shop? Like, and so all of a sudden there was this just natural banter between me and the girls, right? And they're throwing stuff at me and I'm throwing it back. And it was just it was just natural. And it was a great break and it was over. I'm like, that was awesome. And I was like, do you guys have interns? Like, what's like, I mean, cause this is awesome. And they're like, nobody's ever asked us to be our intern. And I was like, I'm dead serious. Like, I would love to be around this. And so they're like, oh, go talk to our GM. So the GM was there that morning. I went and introduced myself. He was listening to that break. I said, I would love to be an intern here. He goes, nobody's ever asked us that. So I was like, how does this work? He goes, you probably need to go back to your professor at USF and ask him, hey, say I have opportunity, maybe do an internship at a radio station. How does this work? And so sure enough, went back to the professor. I'm like, yo, I think I have an opportunity to get an internship at a radio station. He was so excited for me. He's like, yes. It's like, this is what college is about. And so, yes. And so he goes like, this is how it works. You got to fill out this form. You got to log hours. The GM has to sign it. Okay, great. So I go back to them. I'm like, I'm good. They said I can do this. And so he's like, okay. And so now I became like the Hooters on the radio intern. And so
best decision ever.
Literally the best decision ever, because that's led me down this path. So I became their intern. And honestly, they never had an intern. So for the first, 2 months, all I was their bitch boy. They would make me go pick up their dry, go get my coffee. Oh, I forgot to walk my dog this morning. We live across the street. Like, I literally was not doing anything that I thought I would be doing. So then it clicked on me. I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. So if I'm going to learn stuff, I'm going to have to do it myself. So the board op guy, Bill with Wood, he was like their board op control and everything. I literally sat with him. I'm like, is it cool if I just watch you? And started watching and taking notes of how he would pop this down and bring this up, and he's plugging in the computer, the commercials on the computer. And I'm now asking him questions. And so I took it upon myself to start learning stuff. And how do you produce the commercials? Like, who's voicing that stuff? And so he took me and started teaching me the things that I wanted to be taught. And so I started learning how to board op and started learning things. And then the girls one day were like, where's our intern? Like, cause there was some news story that day and they're like, we're going to send our intern down there. And like, why haven't we done this before? Like, we're not utilizing our intern the way we should. And so now I started getting sent out to do like crazy street stunts based upon like news stories or whatever. And that's kind of how the name Third Leg Greg came to be. Was the big story that morning was in Tampa. If you guys remember, Houlihan Stadium was the old sombrero.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, Tampa taxpayers voted for the half-cent tax increase so that we could have what is now Raymond James Stadium. And so that was huge news that we approved the half-cent tax. And so I don't remember how much longer it was after that. They had a groundbreaking ceremony. And so that was the big news the morning before was, today is the groundbreaking. The mayor's going to be out there. They have the tent and the shovels, the whole that. So the next morning, they call me. They say, don't come into the station this morning. Your dad's in construction. I was like, yeah. He goes, you have a hard hat? I was like, I'm pretty sure he has one in the garage. Why? They're like, I have a shovel. I'm like, yeah. I'm not knowing what's going on. They're like, okay, don't come here. Go to Houlihan Stadium. Bring your shovel, your hard hat. Bring your little earpiece for your little plug-in for your phone. Because remember, we used to have little plugs like on the flip phones. So I'm like, okay. So I go out there and they're like, just get to where the ceremony was. So I get out there. I call them at the station. I'm like, I'm here. They're like, okay, so go into the area where the groundbreaking was. And I was like, well, I can't. It's fenced off. And they're like, well, figure it out. Call us back. So I'm like, okay. So I like literally throw my stuff over the fence and hop over the fence to where the groundbreaking. They still had the chair set up from the ceremony. So I get there and I'm like, okay, there's a construction trailer probably about 100 yards away from where I was at. So I'm literally in there by myself. Again, it's early in the morning. And so I'm like, all right, I'm here. I got in. Why? What's going on? They're like, we need you to start digging. And I was like, okay. And they're like, just start digging, put your earpiece in. We're going to call you every 15 minutes to see how it's going. I don't know what's happening on the radio. I'm just, okay, I'm an intern. I'm going to do what they need me to do. So I'm literally out there digging. You can still hear, I remember listening back to the break. You can hear the shovel going in the dirt and me throwing the dirt. They would call back every 15, 20 minutes to check on me, see how I'm doing. At one point, finally, somebody from the construction trailer sees, like, there's this dude over there digging, like, and just starts walking over. So as he's walking over, I'm like, guys, somebody's coming. They're like, just stay calm. We got this. And they're like, we will feed you what to say to this individual who's coming over. I'm like, okay. So I'm still digging. Guy comes over and says, hey man, who are you? What are you doing? And so they're like, tell him you're so-and-so and you're with the union. And so like, they're literally feeding me lines. And so I'm feeding this guy lines. The guy looks confused as hell, right? There's some young kid. Cause remember, I'm like 19, college kid. And so I'm getting into it basically with this construction guy. And I get a little cocky thinking, I got the power of the radio behind me. So I'm just, I'm going to do whatever they say. And so we kind of get into a little bit of a heated argument about the union and this doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to call the cops. And I'm like, you call your boss. And next thing I know, I see a cop car start rolling up. What do? I'm a 19-year-old kid. I panic. I just start running. Chuck left the shovel. I'm just, oosh. And as I'm running, this is on the radio, right? So I take off and I'm just like, and you hear the oosh, 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 and you hear me, right? And then the earpiece thing unplugs from the phone, goes dead. This is all live on the radio. So they're dying, laughing in the studio. Right. So I'm literally running and the cop, as I'm running, pulls up next to me as I'm running, like parallel to me, looking at me. And I'm running. He's like, do you want to stop or do I need to make you stop? And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to jail. So I stopped running. The cop slows down. I had a Hooters on the radio, like t-shirt on underneath my flannel and my hard hat and all that. Mind you, the hard hat flew out at some point. It flew off.
So the cop was listening to the radio,
bro. So he literally was. I didn't know that at the time, though, right? So the cop pulls me over, and basically he's like, "What are you doing, man?" And I like grilling me, and I was like, "Listen." I started almost crying. I'm like, I'm a 19-year-old kid. I'm just a college kid, man. They made me do it. He's like, who made you do it? And I'm like, and I opened the shirt. I'm like, I'm with the Hooters on the radio show. I didn't know what I was doing. They just sent me out here. I'm like literally shooting salad, like everything I can to like not go to jail. And so he's like, okay. He's like, well, at the end of the day, you are trespassing. You're damaging property. I'm like, I don't know. I'm a kid. So, I'm like, well, he's like, I need to speak to your GM at the radio station or whatever. So I call the GM and I'm like, we have a problem. And he was pissed, right? Because everyone was listening to the whole bit and didn't know what was going on. They just heard the cops are coming. Greg's running. Phone goes dead. Nobody knows what's going on. Now Greg's calling me and he's with a police officer. If you got our intern arrested, he was so mad. He literally, when it happened, he kicked in the studio door and told him in my office now because nobody knew. Yeah, and so they came back after that because nobody knew what happened at this point. So this is all happening while I'm being interrogated by the cop. So long story short, he was listening and said, I have to literally see this for myself. And like literally this kid's literally out there digging. So he thought it was freaking hilarious. So like but then he realized like I have a job to do. Like this kid is literally, he's like trespassing. He is digging in a secured area. And so he's like, you're not in trouble, but I'm going to give you a warning. And so he gets on the phone with the GM, they squash it, whatever. So I'm like, hold on, before you hang up, I said to the GM, I said, do they know that I'm not arrested? He goes, no. He's like, I'm just now speaking to this. I said, can you not let them know? Because this is kind of messed up that they put me in this situation. So I would like to hear the conversation on the way back for them not knowing what happened to me because I'm on my way back and I think it's effed up that they put me in this situation and now you're feeding me. And so like, he's like, I'll give you that one. I won't say anything. I'm just going to tell them that I heard you're okay, but we don't know what's going on. Thank you. So on the way back to the radio station, I'm listening to them.
Before we bust that nut, because this story is so fucking good. Hold on, audience. Before you bust that nut, we'll be right back with the rest of that shit. And I hope you didn't bust that nut because we're back. And Greg, Wolf is about to tell you the rest of the story, dog.
Okay, so we pick it up to where they didn't know, the girls didn't know that I was not getting arrested. The cop basically was letting me off with a warning. And so on the way back to the radio station, I'm listening to them basically tell the listeners, guys, this might be our last show. It looks like we got our intern arrested, and we're not sure if we're going to come back from this. Listeners are calling up, dying laughing. Like, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, where is he? I'm literally going by the station, or went by the stadium. I didn't see him. Like, we don't know where he is. And so, like, literally up until maybe 5 minutes till the end of the show, they were just taking calls from listeners or whatever. And I get outside the studio door and I kick that door open and I was like, F y'all, I can't believe you almost got me arrested. Like, oh my God, you didn't get arrested. I'm like, no, but you could have got me arrested. I can't believe you sent me out of there to do that. And they're like, oh my God, he's not right. And so that was like what set it off. What I didn't realize was as I was running, and that was live on the radio, BL was like, we have an APB out, third leg Greg is on the loose. Because they're like, you were running so fast, because it was like, you almost heard like a gallop. There was like you said, it was like Seabiscuit out there. Like, you were running until like cut out. And she's like, third leg Greg, we've lost third leg Greg. And it just came out of her mouth. And so the name stuck at that point, like third leg Greg is safe. Third leg Greg is home. And so that kind of just took off where the name, it all began, was from that bit. And ever since that morning show bit, that led to a whole trove of other things that they started to send me out to do. And anytime they send me out to do a mission, I succeeded at it. And so that's kind of what got me the legendary status. Like, they'll send this dude out to do something crazy, or there's no way he's going to get this done. And he gets it done, right? And so that was kind of the mantra. And the crazy thing is, now looking back at it all these years later with my tie to the Lightning, the big story back then, again, same time Raymond James Stadium gets approved, the Lightning are building the Ice Palace. That news story of that particular morning or whatever was the very first sheet of ice ever is going down today at the Ice Palace. So they said, Greg, we're sending you out. It is your job to do whatever it takes to call us back center ice from the very first sheet of ice. I'm like, what? They're like, bye. Yeah. I'm like, so now I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to pull this one?
Are you getting paid at all?
No, this is
Still intern.
Still interning. And so as a kid, I'm like, what am I going to do to get down to because again, I can go on the media route, but that's not going to get you on the ice, right? On with the media. We don't care. There's media PR. There's a press release today at like this time, like to go there, like you're not getting on the ice. So I'm like, this is going to be a tough one. So I go down there. Mind you, it's still construction zone, right? That means there's still stuff being built. So I literally pulled another Mentos like commercial where in the back compound area of what's now Amalie Arena, but back then the Ice Palace, there's a back compound area, but it didn't have the sliding gate. It was just an open area. So I had my hard hat again and put on like a fake badge, right? Just on my, like I had like a radio station badge or something on my, I just clipped it on, had my flannel, had my hard hat, put some like stuff on my shoulder and walked into the compound like I'm a construction worker, right? So that got me to the security entrance at least, right? So now I get to the security entrance. I can't get through those doors because I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do at this point? So I remove the hard hat, remove the flannel. I'm like, at least I got to the next level. So I get to the security guy window. He's like, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm here to meet Phil. And they're like, Phil who? And I'm like, Mr. Esposito. And they're like, well, what is this in reference to? I said, he told me to meet him here. I have a tryout. And he was the guy, the security guy. No, he's like, I need to make a call, right? Because he has no idea. He thinks like maybe I'm some young upcoming, right? So they're like, listen, the Lightning offices at that time were not in the building. They're like, they're somewhere downtown. They're like, so you need to go so-and-so Kennedy Boulevard. And I'm like, no, Phil told me to meet him here. And so now this is like, again, this is not working, right? So they're like, well, listen, we don't know what that arrangement is. You need to go talk to whoever, but it's not here. So that fails. And so I'm like, okay, that didn't work. So now I go back outside. As I go back outside by the compound, they had, the Zamboni guy was dumping the ice. Cause again, they hadn't quite finished like the area where the ice is supposed to go, like, which is now. So he came outside with the Zamboni to dump the ice out in the plaza. And so I see him drive out. And so again, I put the hat back on. I go back into the compound. I go up to him and I say, excuse me, sir. I said, my name is Greg. I'm with the Hooters on the Radio morning show. He said, oh yeah, I know that. I was like, yes. I was like, listen, I said, Lynn, the BL, the guys, Spaniard, they set me down here because today, obviously, it's huge news that you guys put the ice in today. And they set me down here on a mission that I have to get center ice and call them back center ice. Is there anything you can do to help me? And so he's laughing. He's like, yeah, man. He goes, hell yeah, why not? He goes, I was like, so what do we do? He goes, call them back. I was like, okay. Tell them that I'm going to hire you to be my assistant for the day. I'm like, dude, are you serious right now? Like, this guy's awesome. I'm like, dude, you're amazing. So I call the girls back and I'm like, yep, you're not going to believe this. They're like, what? I'm like, I'm here. What's your name? Tom Miracle. His name's Tom Miracle. Listen, rest in peace, Tom Miracle. He was the Lightning's head of ice of his whole life, basically, from the very day one till he passed away a few years ago. His last name is Miracle. Miracle was his name. And that's why
he gave you a miracle.
He gave me a miracle on ice. I'm saying the 6 degrees separation blows my mind. It was all meant to be the way I look at it. So Tommy Miracle, God bless his soul, says he's going to hire me to be the Zam guy or his assistant for the day. So I call the girls back. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. I'm going to be a Zamboni assistant for the day. They're like, no, you're not. I'm like, I swear, hold on. Tommy Miracle, this is the girls that gets on the phone with the girls. They're having a conversation with him, right? And again, I can't hear it. So his face went from like this happy like face to like this like concern, right? Like, whoa, oh, okay. All right, cool. Thank you. And like, so I'm like, what did they say to you, dude? Because they're going to do everything to try to, wreck this whole situation so I don't complete the mission. What did they say to you? He's like, he said that, you're not quite right in the head and that this is not, they don't know anything about it. And like, I'm like, bro, it's like literally, like, dude, they're trying to sabotage me. Don't believe that. I have the shirt on. I'm like, listen, I'm not just, so he's like, listen, he's like, we got to do this quickly. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? He's like, yeah. He's like, so literally he opens the 2 doors to the Zam tunnel. And I'm like, I call the girls back. I'm like, you're not going to effing believe this. They're like, what? I literally ran out to the ice and I dove onto the ice so you can hear the shh. And like, what is that? I'm like, I'm literally sliding center ice right now. I had a disposable camera in my hand. So I'm like, I'm calling you. I'm looking around. It's still like under construction. I'm looking around like, this is amazing. I took a picture, again, selfie before like selfie. I took a picture of me so I could prove I'm here with my disposable camera standing center ice. Took multiple shots and ran off the ice. I told Tommy Miracle, thank God, thank you so much. And that was it. I got the hell out of the building. I got it done. So literally years later, now you're looking back all these years later to be, it's my 17th season now with the Lightning, but to see that it tied back to radio, it tied back to Tommy Miracle. Like you said, his name is Miracle. It was a miracle that led me down my radio career, which eventually led me to be with the Lightning to where we are today. So that's kind of how the name Third Leg Greg started. How I got my start in the radio industry was with the Hooters on the radio show program, as part of an intern at USF. And the very end of my internship at USF, mind you, again, I'm a college kid going to USF, still studying, but doing these crazy things in the morning on these certain days. And that's kind of like, again, that got me down the path. But before the end of my internship, I went to the GM because, again, I had learned things now. I learned how to run the board. I'm learning how to do commercials. I learned literally different facets of the business. I asked him, I said, listen, I know that this radio station is brokered programming, which there are still very few stations around that are brokered. One in Tampa is H&Z, 1250 H&Z, where you as a doctor, a lawyer, a health program, you can pay for airtime to have your program on that radio station. So that was one of those stations that the Hooters station was on, was 760 WBDN, which is now La Mega, which I still think it is to this day. But again, they had these programs on the weekends that I would sometimes be board opping. I was getting paid at that point by those shows to minimum wage to board op their show. But I learned enough. I'm like, I could do a show. I think I have enough in my mind that I could do a show. So I went to the GM. I said, as a final project, would you let me do a radio show? And he laughed it off. And he's like, I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I don't care if it's at 3 a.m, right? I would like the experience to be able to try to put together something myself. And he's like, dude, you know what? He's like, you've run wall through walls for this show. And he goes, yeah. He's like, let's make it happen. I was like, seriously? He goes, I'm going to even one up you for it. I said, what's up? He goes, I'm going to let you sell commercials. I said, what? He goes, I'll let you sell commercials. I'm like, to who? He goes, that's your job to figure out to do. He goes, but I will give you commercial stop sets in your 1 hour program. But this is part of the project. If we're going to do a project, it's going to be a project. You have a 60 hour clock in a 1 hour radio show. I was like, okay, how many commercial stop sets are you going to give me? He goes, I'll give you up to 3 at almost, you got to do up to 5 minutes. So 15 minutes out of your 60 could be commercials or it could be 5 minutes, up to you. He said, like, but you have the availability for 3 different commercial stop sets in your 60 minutes. But what is your show about? And I was like, I don't know. What is my show about? And you need to figure that out. He's like, 60 minutes on the radio to play music is one thing, but when you're 60 minutes talking, it's a whole nother situation. You got to figure it out. Where are you going to get your content from? Made me think. I was like, he's absolutely right. What am I going to do? So the Third Leg Greg show was born, and my show was based upon Tampa.
What time was it?
It was on 8 o'clock on a Saturday, 8 p.m. at night, which to me was prime time. Not really for an AM station on a Saturday night. That's not prime time. But as a college kid, I'm like 8 p.m. on a Saturday. That's prime time. So that's where he gave me the slot for. I was writing for the hip hop magazine. I'm going to have Russell on. I mean, it's hip hop. The whole show is going to be hip hop based. Ybor at the time was all clubs, right? This is going back to like when Full Moon Saloon and Pleasure Dome, Prana, before Prana. We're talking Empire. Like we're going way back, right? So there were so many clubs, Cherries, Club Hito, Masquerade. There were so many different clubs, so many different DJs, so many different music genres going on. I literally did the research. I'm like, I'm going to do an Ybor update so that tonight, Saturday night, here's all the different clubs. Here's who the DJs are. Like kind of make it Ybor update, which was informative to go, who's DJing where tonight? What kind of music vibe? So again, content. The kid I was going to at USF who was in the mass comm program with me, he got an internship to be a production assistant at MTV. Perfect person to have on to talk to me about your experience. And so I put together a show clock. Like I'm going to talk to him for 10 minutes. I'm going to talk to him for 7. So now I have my content. Now I'm going to go try to sell commercials. I lived in Carrollwood here at the time, not too far from where you guys are at. So I went to a pizza parlor, a consignment shop, a thrift store. Like I went to every place I could. I said, listen, I'm a college kid. I have a radio show on an AM station on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And I have commercial space and I'm willing to promote your business on my show for $50. And they're like, $50. I'm like, you'll get 3 commercials. You write out what you want it to say. I'll record it. You'll get to hear it before it ever airs. And if it's good, then you pay me the $50. You get your commercial space. They looked at it as a college kid, a hungry college kid, but he's giving me something for my business. It's not just give me $50. No, I'm giving you commercial time. Yeah. Dude, I must have gotten 8 places to buy in, give me $50 to do commercials. I have a show. And so my first show, Third Leg Greg show, debuted in 1997, I believe, like late 97. And first show was terrible. Like listening to it years and years later was awful because again, I had no idea what I was doing. And every commercial was my voice. So it was Greg talking into commercial into Greg. Right. But I didn't know right at the time. So it was all Greg's commercial spots. It was hilarious. So that was the end of it. So the show happens. My internship is up. I go in that Monday morning to the GM and I said, hey, did you listen to the show? He's like, I did. And he's like, it wasn't terrible. And I was like, that's great. And he's like, I would make a suggestion to you. And I said, okay. He goes, you may want to get somebody else to voice a commercial. I was like, I knew it. And he's like, there's other people in the building. You could ask somebody to record it for you. I was like, all right, lesson learned. I said, all right, Jerry, it's been a pleasure. I said, just out of curiosity, though, because I have learned something about this radio station. This is a brokered station. So just out of curiosity, just humor me. If I was to keep that 1 hour time slot on that Saturday night at 8 o'clock, what would you charge me for the airtime? Like you would charge any of these health programs, doctors, lawyers. What would you charge me, man? And he laughed it off at first. He's like, Greg, you're funny, man. And I was like, I'm just throw me a number, man. I'm just curious.
$350.
He was like, no, not even. He's like, dude, for you, because again, that's not a prime time spot on a Saturday on an AM station. It wasn't a prime spot. He's like, for you, dude, I'd do like $100, bro. So I took out all the money from the commercials. I made the $100. I threw down on the table. I said, can you book me the next 4 weeks? And he's like, are you serious? I'm like, is the money green? And he was like, you know what, dude? You've earned it, man. Take it. Cheers. So now the Third Leg Greg show was born. And now I'm a college kid who's going to school for mass communications, who's now somehow turned an opportunity, an internship into now his own radio show, who he has advertisers. And I'm like, I didn't know this is the path I was going to go down, but now that's where I'm at. So now I took it seriously. I brought in my own DJ, Cramtronics, to bring his own turntables into the small closet. He set it up on the shelf, and he's literally, we're mixing live. Like I started having sounders on, this is cart machines before CDs and mini players or midis. I had carts, like I literally have to put a cart sound effect in the machine and hit it on the board just to get a sound effect. We didn't have computers and digital. It was crazy back then. But I had my own radio show. And so that went on for a few months, until I got my first dose of radio reality, when I went to show up and the key card didn't work in the door. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? Why does my key work? And I'd call the producer from the Hooters show. His phone's disconnected. I go to call the GM. There's no answer. I'm freaking out. Some kid, I'm like, my radio story's waiting for me and I can't get in the building. So finally I get a hold of the board op guy that taught me the stuff. Bill, I can't get in the office. He's like, you didn't hear? Nobody told you? Told me what? Station got sold. So what does that mean? He's like, the station is sold to a different company. They own it now. Okay, but what about the show? And he's like, there is no more show. And I was like, what? And he's like, it's a Spanish broadcasting company. They own and I still think it is to this day, La Mega 760. So yeah, that was my first dose of like, you're done, dude. Like it's over. And so that was heading into 98. And if you guys know, the summer of 1998, that's when Josh and Brian hit the airwaves on their dad's boat, playing Wild Thing over and over and over again. I was actually working in my brother's kitchen at that time because I was looking for work. And so we all heard this radio station that all they're playing is Tone Loc's Wild Thing. And everybody's talking, calling their friends, you listen to the station name? That's all they're playing is Wild Thing. There's no other songs. It's just Wild Thing. Like, and so, yeah, like what? No, like the Tone Loc Wild Thing. Let's do the Wild Thing. Don't. So that's all it was.
That's a good
24/7. That was it. And so it was like that for 2 weeks. And finally, one day, these two stoner dudes, Josh and Brian, get on the mic like, hey, this is Josh and Brian. We're on our dad's boat. We're just out here, chilling here, Tampa Bay. We're, just going to play some tunes and we're just out here chilling, man. And that was it. Goes back to play Wild Thing. So no, but did you hear those guys? So people then get the pirate radio station now because they're like, these guys are out broadcasting live in the Gulf. It became like this huge buzz. Now on the streets of Tampa, you start seeing little hints of things. There's a white spray painted van. It's a big white cargo van. It was just spray painted Wild 98.7. We don't suck. It wasn't wrapped or nothing. It was literally just a spray painted van. We don't suck. That was all it was. So they're like, what is going on? And there was just kids driving around and giving away t-shirts that just had a Wild 98.7 logo on it. So this is around the time we're starting to catch buzz of what is this? I did some research being a guy who's had some radio. And found the signal and then found who owns the signal. And it was this company in St. Pete, Entercom Broadcasting, owned this signal. So I took it upon myself to find their address and went down to the front office, go to this building. There's nothing radio about it. It's literally like an office building. There's a secretary at the front desk. There's nothing on the walls. It's just like and I'm like, is this the home of whatever? It was before it was WLLD. It was something else. And so I'm there. She's like, yes. And may I ask who you are? And I was like, I'm a college kid and I would like to speak to somebody that has to do with that new radio station, the 98.7 signal. And she looked at me kind of weird. She's like, how does this kid know? Like, cause it was very quiet and underground almost. And so she makes a phone call to the back. And so this other kid comes up to the front desk and that's where it all begins.
That's where we're going to come right back with Happy Hour Holidaze. Greg's going to tell us who was on that other side. So we're back at Happy Hour Holidaze, and we're talking with Greg Wolf. One thing I did want to point out that we said off camera is that Greg's dad was a fucking baller because to fucking move the whole family and know this guy was going to, do something great, man. That was a hell of a fucking hunch.
Pops, he's solid, man. On an early age, obviously, he saw something in me and knew if I got motivated and on the right path, it would lead to greatness. So
he fucking
rest in peace, Pops. I love you.
Yeah.
So so the guy at the radio station, this younger kid, almost my age, a little bit older, comes out from the back office and we're just chit chatting with him. He was kind of like, how'd you find us? And I was like, well, I'm a USF student and I had my own radio show before I told him the whole story. And come to find out, he played in a band with one of my classmates at USF. And so he was basically telling me, yeah, this is a new station, it's launching. This is kind of this is the way it's kind of been launched. And, it's in increments, slow increments, like it's a slow build. And he goes, but we have a promo team, like a street team. That's only job is to really go out and saturate the market, give away shirts and just kind of make noise and be seen. I'm like, well, somebody knows how to go out there and make noise and be seen. I'm like, I'm that guy. And so for whatever reason, his boss, who was the vice president of marketing or the GM of marketing, whatever it was, he, for whatever reason, thought I was a spy for the competition station because I had radio experience, right? And had my own show. And I think he thought, well, this kid, for whatever reason, he just thought I was a spy for the competition station. And it took like 5 different interviews with this guy to finally bring me on to be a part-time promotions kid. But again, I knew if I got my foot in the door there, I'm going to learn everything about this side of the business. And so I got my foot in the door at Wild in 98, right? Probably within 90 days of the station launching. This is right as Wild Thing went into Make 'Em Say, from Master P and Silky Fine, Romeo and Juliet. These were like some of the earliest songs that were on that station, that launched that station. Militia was another one. It was crazy to think about how that station launched, but was on the street team basically when Wild started and did the same thing there. I learned how to run the board. I sat behind Scantman, Flying Brian, Orlando, learned how to run the board, became indispensable as far as taking the helms on the promotions end, became the assistant promotions director and started doing the schedule for the crew and started board hopping on the weekends, like when we would be live at the clubs. And so again, I paid my dues and eventually became the weekend night guy. On Saturdays and Sundays, and the night DJ at that time, in 99, he ends up getting fired because of his own antics. And so, at that time, again, I was the weekend night guy, and then the weekday night guy is fired. So they're like, well, we need somebody to fill in until we can find our next star from somewhere across the country. Wild at this peak in 99 had made a lot of noise. And the industry knew about Wild. So here comes this open night show gig into one of the hottest stations in the country. Orlando was getting boxes of air check tapes every single day, people that wanted to come here. But I knew, again, you have an opportunity right now. You got to take this ball and run with it. So me and the Wild Bunch, we got together and said every single night that we're on, we're out on the streets. We're in front of people. We're going to figure stuff out. We're going to be doing games. We're going to give away tickets and CDs. Like we are going to be in people's faces. And not only that, when the street stuff is over in the clubs, we are going to be wilding out in the clubs, Liquid Blue, a Coliseum, you name it. And that's exactly what we did. So took the ball, ran with it. The ratings kept going up and up and up. And finally they ended up signing me for a 3-year deal. Again, right out of college, here comes, this kid not too far out of USF, to now a 3-year deal as a night DJ on Wild. That led for 2 contracts, almost 7 years. I was the number 1 rated night show in Tampa for almost 7 years, basically from 99 to 2005. And at the end
what was the name of the show?
Third Leg Greg and the Wild Bunch, which again, there's, the crazy thing is too, this was the days, as we were saying, of MySpace. This is before Facebook and Instagram, really the social media world taking off. And I made them go out at night and with a video camcorder to record our street bits, to record our stuff in the clubs, because people are going to want to see this. And the idea at the time was to make a Third Leg Greg and the Wild Bunch, like a Wild Bunch Gone Wild style DVD that we could sell, right? And so there are still VHS tapes full of footage. And Buckwheat knows too, if some of this footage is ever released, Buckwheat is canceled forever. Forever, Buckwheat. The cucumber incident, Buckwheat. He knows about the cucumber incident. That's all I can say on that. It's the cucumber incident. And you can ask Buckwheat about it because I won't tell Buckwheat, but we have the video to prove it. But that's just one of the, there's a lot of stuff on those tapes. And we used to have to get, releases and stuff signed. And Dick, who was one of our Wild Bunch members, he still has the releases. He's a great guy. I always held on to him. So if we ever did decide to do something, we actually still have releases that we could use and put aside and say, you signed the release, so you can't come after us years down the road if footage is out. But anyways, so I saw the writing on the wall that content was going to rule the world. So I used to make them go out and record everything because I knew it someday people are going to want to see this stuff. So my contract is up in 2005, heading into 06. And I didn't really know at that time, do I want to stay on the radio? I was getting flown to different markets, very much like a D1 draft pick, which was actually pretty cool. I went to Minneapolis, New Orleans, Kansas City, and they do the PDs pick you up in the best station vehicle they have, the Tahoe with the system in it, and they take you to the station, they schlep you around and introduce you to everybody, and they take you out to dinner, and they take you to the hottest club night and ball out, like to show you like this could be all yours, but nothing felt right to me, so I waited it out. I had a severance from my contract, so I'm like, I need to make a decision and figure out what my next move is. So sure enough, that's when Street Lace was formed, because my business partner Blaze was the Tampa market representative for the major record labels at that time, Interscope, Def Jam. Back when we actually had music stores, he would be responsible for the in-store displays for Eminem's new album, or whenever an artist was doing a show or a tour or a club date, his job would be to saturate downtown with those boards. Eminem album in stores now, street team stuff. His job was to make sure all the DJs had all the vinyl records with the acapellas and the instrumentals. He'd service all the DJs. So again, me being the night guy at Wild, I'd see him in Full Moon Saloon doing like displays for, Big Pun or whatever it was for that coming night's club gig or whatever it was. So I would see him all the time with this product consistently. And so when my gig was up, he approached me and said, I could use your help, dude. You know all the DJs, you know all the club guys. I have so much work, street team mentality. You know how this works. And the more we talked, the more I said, well, maybe I should work for you. Maybe we should start a legitimate company together, a promotions company together. But I'm only going to feel like I'm bringing something to the table because you already have all the majors. So what am I bringing to the table? Relationships? Is that really worth it? I need to go get some other record labels off the power of the majors that you have. So let me go to South Beat Records and some of these smaller Sobe Records. Let me go to some of these smaller labels and say, hey, if we're already out in the market doing the work, why wouldn't you want to piggyback off of what we're already doing to get your stuff out as well? And that was the sell, and it worked. So we ended up having like 12 record labels that we were the service providers in this market for DJs, clubs, music stores, whatever. And so that was 0506. At the time, I reached out to the guy who hired me originally at the radio station. His name's Mark Gullett. He left Wild about a year and a half into his creation to take the job as vice president of marketing for the Tampa Bay Lightning. As being the night guy at Wild for all those years, he's now with the Lightning. We worked hand in hand all the time on promotions, ticket giveaways. Back when we had the Tampa Bay Storm Arena football team, he'd have Storm cheerleader audition tryouts or the Lightning girl tryouts. He'd send the girls down on the show to promote their tryouts. So we had great working relationship. So when my gig was up, I hit him up. I said, I'd love to work with you again. Like you saw me come up. You're the guy I thought I was a spy, and I ended up running through walls and become the number one show in the city, right? I proved him wrong. So that was my whole shtick. I proved you wrong once, let me do so. So he's like, Greg, I would hire you tomorrow if I had something. But at the time, he's like, I don't. And so I waited it out, started Street Lace. That became the focus. Sure enough, a few months later, I get a phone call from him. He goes, hey, can you come to the game tonight? I was like, yeah. He goes, wear a suit. Meet me at the admin entrance at 5:00. Okay.
This happened a lot in your life.
Right? So I was like, what is this about? So I go to the Lightning game that night, and it was kind of awkward. He goes, tonight we're just going to observe. And I was like, okay. And so I didn't really, again, know what we were observing. So we go out to the plaza, 4th Thunder Alley at the time, and he wanted me to just pay attention to everything that was going on out there, from the band to the sponsors to just the environment and everything. And so we did that. We did the same thing in game. And then went down to his office, and I said, he's like, what did you see tonight? And it was like a trick question. I'm like, what am I supposed to answer? Like, what, like, he just want my feedback, or is he looking for me to say specifics? I didn't know, like, this is a test. And so I just told him what I thought I saw or things that I observed. And so I'm like, what is this about? And he goes, listen, I have a job. It's a marketing coordinator position. The kid that's out there running the plaza right now, he's the guy that I have in that position. I have some suspicions that this kid, he may be drinking on the job, basically, or, he's effing up here and there. And he goes, he's got a couple strikes. So if he's one more, he's out. I think you would be a great addition to take on this, this opportunity. Sure enough, kid messes up again, calls me. He's like, you want the gig? I was like, yep. And so I became marketing coordinator for the Lightning. Street Lights, again, kind of a side hustle on the side, didn't really interfere with what I was doing with the Lightning. And so this is 06. The Lightning at the time in 06 had two hosts. this girl, Jenny Dean, this dude, Todd. And they would alternate some nights. Some nights it would be just one of them or whatever. I'm in marketing, right? So I'm paying attention with all the stuff out in the plaza. Again, my job with the Lightning at that time was to curate everything out of the plaza, booking the bands, DJs, working with sponsors to make sure they have areas on that plaza location, just anything to do with that. The stuff outside for the pregame, we handled all the TV ads, print ads, all the premium items. Back then, the Lightning were doing bobbleheads all the times, and rally towels. Like you have to order that stuff from China, and so we were involved in all of that stuff. And so I wasn't really on the game production side until one night. I hear the director in my boss's office, which was right down the hall from mine, basically say, I don't know what the F we're going to do. And like, I hear him like freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? And so I basically hear him say that this dude, Todd, was out of the market on business or something. And Jenny Dean has a family emergency 2 hours before puck drop. And she has to go. I have to go now. Leaves. And like, okay, well, the show has to go on. We have sponsor things. We have the in-game elements. We have all this stuff planned. I don't have a host right now. So I hear like what's happening. So I go down to my boss's office. I knock on the door. I'm like, guys, like I couldn't help it over here. What's going on? I said, Mark, you know more than anybody, I am more than capable to get in front of a crowd tonight and rock this place. And he was like, he looks at the director and he goes, I don't think you have much choice. You made put in the Wolf. And he goes, Wolf, let's go. You're in. And so I guest hosted that night, crushed it because again, I'm a fan of the team, right? I'm a radio guy who's been in front of crowds and clubs and rock. Now I get to be the biggest fan, like of all fans. Now I get to be the fan of all fans. So it resonated with the fans that night. Like he's one of us. Like you can tell he's having fun. Like he wants us to win. Like he's engaged. And so they were like, that's great. We know, God forbid we ever have another situation. We have somebody in our own office that is more than willing to do this. And so
For 10,000 a show.
I wish. So sure enough, the 2007 season, the guy Todd leaves the market and Jenny Dean gets a job on Bay News 9. And so I just kind of like slid into the role because again, do I need to audition and try out for something that I've already demonstrated to you that I was capable of doing? Do you really are they going to go through that whole process? Or like we have the guy in our own building. He's one of ours. It's not like coming from outside these walls. So in 2007, I took over the role and did it for the arena football team for the Storm as well. And did that until 2009. Stammer comes to the team in 2008. We were doing viral videos. We're the ones that created the Scene Stamkos campaign that got international recognition. Nobody had done anything like that for a draft pick ever. Creating a website. It was global. And so we were doing amazing stuff. And the team gets sold in 2009 to what we call the Cowboy Ownership Group. That's what Phil Esposito referred to them as. So the Cowboys come in and really, I guess the best way to put it was they were trying to run the franchise like a fantasy hockey team. Like that's not how you run a business. And that it came out very quickly that this is failing. And so Jeffrey Vinnick buys the team, right? That was a few years after. But in 2009, when this Cowboy Ownership Group came in, they basically fired everybody, including me. They fired everybody in the building to bring in. Again, I get it. If you're a sports franchise, you're going to bring in your own people. It doesn't matter if it's coaching staff. Like I get that. But we were doing amazing things in the marketing department. Why are you getting rid of us? If I could understand we were slacking at our jobs or we weren't doing great stuff, but we were, but it didn't matter. I get it. You're going to bring in your own people. But for the hosting stuff, I'm like, again, in marketing, we see season ticket member surveys and feedback. Yeah. And I knew I had a good rating with the fans. Like I saw it. So I was like, why am I being relieved of that duty? Didn't matter. They fired all of us. So I got picked up by iHeartRadio, which again was the broadcast partner of the Lightning. And it was a position open for promotions director for WDAE, which is sports radio station home of the Rays, Bucks, Lightning. So again, coming from radio, having sports marketing experience, sports radio was the next evolution. And so I worked at iHeart and basically ran promotions for WDAE, for 970 WFLA and 95.7 The Beat, ironically, which was our competition at Wild. So all those years later, again, a kind of a full circle moment, now running ship for The Beat.
You were a spy.
I came back all those years later in competition wise. But yeah, so I did that for 7 years. All the meanwhile, Street Laced was still a side hustle until 2016. And that's when Blaze and I both decided that, we've put so much into our own company. Obviously, when the music industry changed and everything went digital, we saw the writing on the wall. And we knew that teams like ours were going to start getting ousted because unless you're New York, LA, Dallas, Chicago, Tampa wasn't in that same, hemisphere. So we knew the teams like ours were going to get, boosted. So we transitioned and went away from the music promotions and started working directly with our DJs here in Tampa, because we also heard a need from the DJs that were getting frustrated, again, dealing with club owners in the early 2000s when the DJs like the Chris Johns of the world, the Jamie Ferreras, they're doing these club gigs and they're waiting to get paid at the end of the night, right?
But with ones too.
To ones, rolls of quarter. I'm not going to start naming certain, club owners out there. You guys know who they are. They're paying like with rolls of quarters. Bro, no. And not only that, but you're paying out the door girl. You're paying out security. Like the DJ is the one responsible for keeping the vibes curated so that your bar sales are ringing. Like he's the first guy you should be paying so he can get out of here and get on with his family, right? So we would hear the frustration from these dudes. And we're like, you know what? Would you be willing to give up a very small percentage, just like a talent fee, a small fee, for us to deal with the bullshit, for us to now go get your money for you so that you can show up, rock the club, pack your stuff, and leave, knowing Streetlight's going to go get my money. I don't have to deal with the club owner. I don't have to deal with the manager, nobody. Would you be willing to, because we're reputable, Blaze and Greg, they know who they are. Would you be willing to get, and they were all like, F yes. Now, can we sign now? And so we started going to these club owners and saying, hey, I'm Greg and Blaze with Streetlights. We represent DJ Chris John, Jamie Ferrer, whoever it was. So just like your liquor distributor send you an invoice each month and you sign off on it, whatever, and you pay, you cut your distributors a check. We're going to handle this in the same fashion. If the DJ's here 4 times a week or 4 times a month, whatever, every Saturday, whatever his fee is, we're going to send you an invoice. You can pay it by credit card or we'll come pick up a check. We're going to treat this just like any other business. And so the club owners were like, okay. And so they're like, I don't have to deal with them. They know what to do. Cool. And so that's how we started managing and assembling our Streetlights DJs crew, which is now over 45 DJs here in the Tampa market. So it just keeps growing. It keeps developing. We have a full array of talent now, not just DJs, but all sorts of entertainers, from fire breathers to breakdance crews to America's Got Talent worthy acts. We have all of those as part of the Streetlights conglomerate of entertainers. And that's spun off to a couple other businesses as well. So the grind is it's always evolving and continuing, man.
Dude, I'll tell you something. I mean, the whole story is all about persistence. I mean, the way you persisted and hustled throughout the entire story, it was fucking crazy.
Yeah, man.
When we get back, we'll keep going with Greg Wolf here and ask a couple of questions that we're interested in. And we're back with Happy Hour Holidaze with Greg Wolf. Greg, tell us a little bit more about Streetlights, Blazing Wolf, and then what you guys do with the Lightning and also other professional teams, because I definitely know at Raymond James, you guys do a lot of the entertainment there, the Bucks Beach over at Raymond James, which used to be nothing more than ticket sales, but now, ticket sales, ticket office. But you guys turned it into something that's enjoyable. I'm a hardcore Bucks fan. I've been there a million times, and it's a freaking blast.
Yeah.
Now. So how did you end up getting all these other areas?
So Streetlights, again, has developed its full entertainment marketing and promotions company now. Blazing Wolf Productions is a sister company because we handle all the face painting, henna, caricatures, airbrushing services for Zoo Tampa. At Lowry Park, and we're actually now this month especially at the Glazer Children's Museum. So a whole different artistic arm of Streetlights is now Blazing Wolf Productions, whether that's kids' birthday parties or private events or whatever. We have some amazing, talented artists. And again, we're at the zoo 7 days a week with these artists. So that's a whole nother sub company underneath the Streetlights umbrella. But as far as the entertainment aspect, again, the DJ crew, the entertainment crew, we actually have taken the grassroots mentality of hip hop and street promotions and put that to use also for other businesses, because again, grassroots still works. People still do it to this day because it works. That one-on-one interaction or just handing you something, have a conversation for 2 seconds is going to be a lot more effective than you flipping through your phone and just kind of scrolling through and actually seeing a message or not. So we've put that to use. But again, like you said, that's allowed us to get into some of these bigger entities in the market and beyond, from the Buccaneers, like you said, with Bucks Beach, and helping them reimagine that space, and almost like a sensory overload when you show up to Bucks Beach, where before it was just a ticket box area, is now like a full encompassed beach vibe with the tiki hut with our DJs, and our entertainers are roving entertainers, and the Bucks beat line and the cheer squad out there dancing. It's a whole reimagined area that they took that really wasn't engaging with fans, and we've been able to help them bring that area to life. But we also do it for the Lightning out at Fort Thunder Alley for their entertainment as well. IMG Academy, USF Athletics, they transformed that same area for USF football games, except it's called Bulls Bay instead of Bucks Beach. But same thing with our face painting crew out there, balloon artists, the whole nine. So I've been able to curate, along with Blaze, our relationships with Street Laced into these other entities. And again, the reputation that we've built in the market and the relationships it's taken years to curate. Like we were talking earlier with the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, we've been with them almost since 2008 on every major sporting event that's come through Tampa, whether that's the Women's Final Four, the Frozen Four, the SEC Basketball Championships, any of those events. We've had our imprint on that, whether just from a DJ perspective or me hosting those events or just our entertainers. We've had our footprint on all of it, including the Gasparilla Bowl, including the ReliaQuest Bowl, which was formerly the Outback Bowl, hosting all of those events. And again, circling back to the Lightning. And when Jeffrey Vinik bought the team, he and Todd Legwicki, who was our CEO at the time, Steve Griggs, who's now our CEO, Todd Legwicki was with the Seattle Sounders and the Seahawks, and came down here and helped reestablish this team with Mr. Vinik. And the first thing he did was, when he got here, said, I want to see all the season ticket member surveys and see what they're saying about this organization, about their experience. And the fans kept going, where's Greg Wolf? What happened to Wolf? Oh, and so again, they went to Bill Wickett, who was their main PR director guy, and they were like, "Who's Greg? Where's this Greg Wolf guy?" And they're like, "He works actually for our broadcast station, DAE and FLA. He's with our sister station." And they're like, "Well, see if he wants to come back." And so I got the phone call, and they said, "Hey, do you want to come back?" This was actually the lockout year. I think it was 2011, lockout year. So I was so excited they asked me to come back, which in sports is rare, right? Because again, if things happen, things change, they're just going to have something new, and they know the fans at some point will adapt to it. But for Todd Legwicki and Griggs and those guys to listen to what the fans were saying, and the fans are asking for this Wolf guy, let's go get this Wolf guy back. And again, the rest has been history, and I've been their host ever since. So really going back to the 2007 season, only that short time when I got let go in the 2009, 2010-ish season, that's when it all kind of went to crap, but then they brought me back, and here we are now in 23-24 season. This will actually be my 17th season with the team. That has led to major NHL league events now. And again, I never seeked out wanting to do the Winter Classic or the Stadium Series. Again, it was more so about representing our team here in Tampa and doing everything and giving it on my all for Tampa. Well, back in 2018, we had the All-Star weekend here in Tampa. And knowing that the event's coming here, they're going to utilize us in-house for certain elements. And I was a part of some of those elements. And so they told me I would be interviewing the players at Red Carpet Player Walk. Right. So they're like, hey, listen, the players are going to come up behind the arena. There's this whole Red Carpet Player Walk. So they're going to come out at 3 at a time off of a bus. And you have your freedom to choose which one of the 3 you want to talk to. And they know that you're only going to talk to one of them, right? So how do you prepare for something like that? Well, before any of the All-Star festivities came, I made sure I had cue cards on every single player with notes about each one of them, not just basic stuff, but like did some digging so I could talk about some off-the-cuff stuff, One thing that comes to mind is Brett Burns. He's a big farm guy. He has like bison and stuff, and like one of his bison got loose or something. And so when I saw him, I'm like, did you ever catch the bison that got loose? Like something that, if you know him. And so I was prepared. And so the people that were running the league and running the player stuff for that saw that. Like, this guy was quick. He was on his toes. He was funny. He was informative. The fans dug it. His questions were unique. He prepared. And so that, I think, was a huge green light for them to go, hey, if we ever have future stuff, we may want to consider this guy, because he took it seriously and he demonstrated not only for the All-Star stuff, but they've been back numerous times through Stanley Cup championship stuff. So the 28 All-Star led to the next year, which was the Global Series, when we went over to Sweden, which eventually led to our Stanley Cup runs. And so they asked me to go over and host the Global Series in Stockholm, Sweden in 2019, which was an amazing, I'm like, holy crap, like thinking about, man, this has brought me now, the hosting stuff has brought me, the radio stuff now has brought me to an international scale to do an event for the league on an international level. What? And so ever since 2018, I've done major league events, even like through COVID in 2020 when they played in the bubble. Even when the bubble was happening, we were still doing a small gathering with fans. You've socially distanced the whole night at the arena. So we still got to do something for that. And then, the next year, obviously, we're back on the Stanley Cup again. So we're here again for that. 2022, they asked me to come back and host the All-Star festivities, which was in Vegas. And then last year, they asked me to do the Winter Classic, which was at Fenway Park in Boston. I did the All-Star festivities in Sunrise, and then I did the Stadium Series, which was in Raleigh. Obviously, they liked what we did because, again, this season, they brought me in to do all 4 major league events, which is the Heritage Classic in Edmonton in October. The Stadium Series this year is in Seattle, so it's the Golden Knights, so it's Stanley Cup champs versus Seattle in T-Mobile Park, where the Mariners play. All-Star festivities in Toronto. And then the Stadium Series this year is a pretty big one because it's not just one game, it's 2. It's in New York at MetLife Stadium. On Saturday, it's the Devils versus the Flyers, February 17th. And Sunday, it is the Rangers versus the Islanders, Battle of New York. And they're having me come and do all of that. So again, a huge testament to the Lightning organization and the hard work for the league to come. This is just to put it into perspective for all my Tampa people.
Tampa, baby.
For the NHL, which is a global league, to come to Tampa to get their host to host the Battle of New York,
where it doesn't snow.
Where it doesn't snow. Like, yeah, we're not in blizzard conditions. They're bringing Tampa's guy to host all these events: Edmonton, Toronto, Seattle, New York. That says a lot about what we've done here in Tampa and what we continue to do and to continue to put ourselves on the map. So I've just been a small part of that, and I love this city. And I will always ride for this city no matter what. But it's been an epic journey, as you guys have heard, going from that, like you said, from my dad, seeing the vision back then to USF, to the Hooters show, to Wild, to Street Lakes, to everything. It's all culminated to this moment here right now.
I'll tell you something. They don't call him Third Leg Greg for nothing. Okay. It goes all the way international, baby.
International.
And if you haven't seen it, you'll see it on OnlyFans for $19.99.
Man's got jokes. My man's got jokes. But yeah, so it's been a hell of a run, man. Like I said, it's I really feel like it's just kind of beginning because, again, from the hosting perspective, I never sought out to like host the Winter Classic. Like, I just wanted to do the best job here in Tampa. So if others outside of this market recognize what we do, and again, I'm just a small piece of the product of what the Lightning Vision crew puts on a game night. And if people that come here from other markets, other cities, other countries, they experience what they experience at Amalie Arena, and it resonates with them so much so that they talk about it to their friends. They talk, man, that experience, it was more than a game. It was like I was entrenched in an experience. People have gone to tons of other hockey games in other arenas, not just hockey, but basketball, football, you name it. It's a different experience at Amalie Arena. It is world class. And that resonates so far now outside of our walls that, again, people are coming within our walls to get what we're doing and showcase to the rest.
Wasn't the Tampa Bay Lightning voted the #1 sports franchise like 2 years in a row?
Yes.
There's a reason. There's a reason.
And it goes all the way to the sports franchise. I mean, I've been to plenty of stadiums, and there's nothing like the energy at a Tampa Bay Lightning.
It's a fact. Yeah, the ESPN, you're right. It's voted. There's so many variables that go into saying this is why they're the best franchise in sports. And again, it starts with the top down, Mr.
And we're not just talking about NHL.
No, we're talking about all
NFL,
MLB, every sport, MLS. Tampa Bay Lightning were the #1 franchise. And again, it went through all these different variables from like you said, the experience to the cost of the ticket to the concessions and what they offer and like the parking situation. And like, there's a million variables, and they checked off all the boxes. They're like, Tampa Bay Lightning by far set the standard.
I mean, the XO Club, I don't know how many times I've been.
I don't think it's announced the Chase
Club. The Chase Club, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of my, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have nothing on the Chase Club or the Tampa Bay Lightning when it comes to overall fan experience.
Sure.
I'm a diehard football fan. I love football, you know, a little bit more than NHL. But when I go to the NHL, freaking Tampa Bay Lightning games, they're fun, man. They're a blast.
It's easy to get in.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
my favorite part about it, because at the fucking Buck Stadium, you got to walk for, I don't know, bro. You're sitting in line, and it's just pain in the ass. I mean, no. I mean, they're voted number one for a reason.
Correct.
Let's put it that way.
No, for sure.
All right, so let's get a prediction on the upcoming season for the Lightning.
Okay, so I know we lost a lot of key players, a lot of fan favorites, right?
Yeah.
And that's been the off-season gripes, I guess, if you will, from our fan base. But if we've learned anything over time, it's that you have to believe in the process, right? It used to be believe in the Iser plan. Now it's believe in Brisebois. Julien Brisebois, our GM, has done an amazing job over these last 10 years of getting us to a position where we have a chance to go for a cup every single year. If you look at the bigger picture last year, I would even say the last 2 seasons, but more so last year, and you look at the Pat Maroons and you look at the Belmars and you look at some of those pieces we lost, Corey Perry, were those guys playing up to the level that we need in order to make a deep run? Yes, we lost an Alex Killorn, we lost a Ross Colton. I get those. Those guys are still youngers, but they also, as you guys know, in the sports industry, they're trying to get a payday, right? They know they can't do this forever. So you can never fault somebody for going after their opportunity to get their payday. But on the flip side of that is, when you look at the numbers and look at the numbers of the guys that we've brought in and Stanley Cup champs now that are coming in, and guys that have rings and they know what it takes.
Like the Braden Points.
Like the Braden Points of the world.
That kid is special.
He's special. And not only that, but the core is here, right? For years. You got Kucherov, Stamkos, Braden Point, Vasilevsky, Hedman. Like, these are guys that on most teams, if it was just them, would be the all-star superstar, right? Yeah. We have a whole core of superstar. We have, I think, the most out of the top 300, and I just saw a stat the other day, of the top 300 NHL players, the Lightning have the most in the top 300.
I believe it.
It's like we have, I think, 4 in the top 20 or 30 on our team. Think about how many players there are, right?
Think about how many teams there are.
Think about how many teams there are. So the core is locked. The guys around them now, the newer guys, are the ones that are going to have to gel and mesh. But if we've learned anything, we don't care how long it takes as long as you get in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
The regular season really doesn't matter. We're not here for participation.
Trying to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Look what's happened to the President's Trophy winners.
I was about to say,
the curse is real, people. Look at Boston. They were the best seasons ever. Literally the best season ever. And did not get past, right? So
same with the Lightning.
Yeah,
it happened to us too. It's happened to everybody the last 10, 11, 12 years. It is a curse. So just because you crush it in the regular season means absolutely nothing when it comes to the playoffs. So we have a whole season now for these newer guys that have been brought in to mesh with the guys that we have now. And I think it's going to happen sooner than later because they're professionals. These guys have won cups. A few of them have won cups. So they know what it takes. They know the dedication it's going to take. And I trust in Julien Brisebois to put those pieces together and find those pieces of the puzzle that will eventually fit in the grand scheme of things. So I think it's hard to say, obviously, we're going to make it to the cup this year. That's the goal.
Yeah,
I truly believe we're always going to be a contender every single year. And I believe that this year is going to be no different.
Who is your favorite NHL player of all time?
Woo!
Don't say Wayne Gretzky.
No, I mean, I'm not going to say. I would say of all time is probably going to be Marty St. Louis.
Marty St. Louis.
First of all, I just saw a picture the other day of his tree trunks again because they were comparing his legs to one of the new the kid that was the first round draft pick who was in the gym the other day. And they're like, oh, he's almost a quarter of Marty St. Louis. And then they showed Marty's, his calves and his legs are just, they were such tree trunks for such a little dude that moved so fast and did so well in his career that nobody gave him a shot, right? They always counted him out. He's too small. He's not the guy. And he proved everybody wrong like that. It's almost like a Rudy story, but for hockey. And, being that he was our guy and now he's the coach of the Montreal Canadiens, which, kudos to Marty. But I think out of all the players that I've seen over the years, he's probably made the most impact for being somebody that was always kind of written off and counted out. So you have to respect that story for sure.
So Greg, we're wrapping up now. Can you leave our audience members with some, we call it the last words.
Sure.
What are your last words? It could be inspirational. It could be anything. It could be funny. It doesn't fucking matter. It could be anything.
Go Bolts. No,
Yeah, that's good too.
a good one.
Yeah. And go Bucks.
And go Bucks. And go Rays.
Go Rays.
And go Rowdies.
Rowdies.
Gotta go. Come on, you Rowdies. I would say if there's any last words or parting words or words of wisdom, it's going to be to never turn down an opportunity if you're presented with one. If you feel that opportunity in some way, shape, or form could benefit you down the road. And I'll give you an example. Obviously, throughout my career, I took chances, right? And took whatever opportunity was presented and ran with it and tried to make the most of it, which has obviously led me to where I'm at today. But not everything is maybe what it seems on the surface. So like if, for example, somebody from a charity comes to me and says, hey, I would love for you to host this event. We have a gala coming up. We're a nonprofit. We don't have a whole lot of money. Would you be interested in hosting for an hour just to give us some of your time? It would mean a lot to us. We have a lot of lighting. Okay, great. If I have the means and I can do it and I'm available, I'm going to do it. Why? Because if I host this event for this individual that's a charity, I don't know the people that are in that audience. I don't know who's sitting there. I don't know who's watching. And if I do something out of the grace of my heart and I crush it and I do a great job and they're thankful, how do I know that somebody who wasn't in that crowd or was watching was like, that guy was awesome? Hey, let me get Jane. Can I get that guy's number? Because I have an event coming up next week, a huge gala with all these people coming in from out of town, and I got a great budget. How do I know that opportunity is not going to lead to something bigger and better just because I gave it some time? So if you have the time and you can do it and you think it could be some sort of benefit, do it. You never know what's going to become of something. So that's kind of my shtick to that is if you're presented with something, try to make the most of it and try to do it.
10 seconds. Yeah. When Greg says crush it, he means that he's always going to crush it.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for Happy Hour Holidays. We got Greg Wolf. Woo, woo, woo.